Hello, everyone. I will hold this presentation sitting. It's a little bit more comfortable for what I want to show. Nice to meet you. My name is Daniel, as Sam mentioned. I did my PhD over here at the Faculty of Economics. I did a PhD in statistics, and it's been a while that I've been working with statistics, with data analysis, with R, and so on. So as Samuel mentioned, I'm part of the EPFL Extension School, which is an institution that is part of EPFL, and its intention is to provide education on continuous education on data science and machine learning in particular. And I'm part of this school as an instructor of track of communication and visualization. And we use Quarto now for our analysis and for our let's say for our internal documents and so on. Okay. But so today's presentation is Quarto for academics. That means Quarto being used in the academic setting. And I will explain what Quarto is, a little bit of background, and illustrate with some examples of the many different publishing possibilities that this tool has. Okay. So let me start by just a little, let's say, it's not a eulogy, just an homage to R Markdown. Remember how cool R Markdown was when it just first came about? I don't know if everyone is familiar, but R Markdown, it was practically life-changing. I don't know if I can speak from my experience saying that R Markdown was a really great tool to put things together, like to have your code alongside your outputs and to be able to comment it with text. It was just a fantastic tool to do all these things from a single environment, from a single tool, in a single editor, right? But now things are evolving, technology has evolved, and the company and the people behind R Markdown have decided to try to export this approach, the same approach that R Markdown, the same philosophy of R Markdown, into a new tool called Quarto. Okay, what is Quarto? Well, in the words of its creators, Quarto is an evolution, right? Multi-language, next generation version of R Markdown. It is intended to be open source, to be multi-language, and especially a multi-platform publishing system. What do we mean when we say that it is open source? You understand the source is there, like one can add extensions, one can read the code, etc., etc. But when we say that it is multi-language, it wants to be multi-language. It means that it can hold many languages, many computational languages, such as R. And here's an example of how a Quarto Markdown looks like Quarto R document looks like. It all starts with a YAML header, with the title, author, etc., some data for the rendering, and especially the definition of the format, right? The format in this case is an HTML document, and you can add some parameters for the rendering, right? Such as the width of the figures, the height, etc., whether you want the code to be folded or not, and so on. Then comes the part of the text, which is written in Markdown, etc., right? And the main feature of the R Markdown approach is, of course, the code chunks that are, like written where you write down your R code, etc. But the nice feature about in Quarto is that you can write your chunk options within a cell, within a code chunk in YAML format, and this makes it a little bit more flexible, because before you used to have you were to write over here the chunk options and so on, and it was a very much R Markdown-y, let's say, exclusive feature and so on. Now you can write them down as chunk options in YAML format, and that allows us to write down a Quarto document in other formats, right? In other languages. For instance, in Python, you can write down a Python notebook, like over here with a YAML header. with your different cells, etc., and write down the rendering options in the YAML format. And afterwards, via some command line instructions, some command line commands, you can render this Jupyter notebook into an HTML document, for instance, right? It also supports the language Julia, which is a language very much used in the world of mathematics. And over here is the same approach, like the YAML header, the text in Markdown, perhaps some cross-reference, etc., and then the code in that particular language. And now there's this tool called Observable, which is very much used in interactive visualizations. Quarto, also supports that. So you can write down your coding in Observable, and then write down the rest of your text, cross-referenced and so on in Markdown. Okay. So this is as far as, let's say, they have implemented all the languages that it supports for the moment. And you can see that the structure is always the same: YAML header, text in Markdown, and code chunks of the different languages with some options. Okay. When I say that it's intended to be multi-platform, it means that you can use your any editor that you want. For instance, I think this talks to everyone. This speaks to everyone. When it's implemented in our studio very neatly. You can write down in your code as source code or pre-rendered in the Visual Markdown editor. And it appears, of course, in the preview little window, preview pane. Jupyter notebooks are also supported, so you can write down your Jupyter notebook, etc., and then render it as HTML on the spot. Or if you're more into, let's say, into the use of VS Code, you can do the same thing from VS Code. There are hooks, there are extensions that allow the rendering of Jupyter notebooks or Python code onto HTML or all the formats that Quarto supports. And if you're really, let's say, old school, or perhaps like a little bit traditional, you can personalize your text editor to support the production of this type of documents, right? So this is an example of a text editor called Atom, if I'm not mistaken, and it does the same thing, right? You write down your YAML, you can personalize it to have auto-completion or link it with GitHub Copilot or things like that to be even faster, okay? So this is as far as it goes in terms of multi-platform. And now let's talk a little bit about how Quarto can help in academia. I think everybody's now familiar with the use of R Markdown, or the use of Knitr, or the use of Swift and things like that. But now how Quarto can help in academia. Well, it's of course the title of the presentation. Quarto offers a world of possibilities for communicating. As a tool for presentation, it's built to perhaps help you build engaging courses and academic talks, right? With all the possibilities that it provides. And it also, as a tool for typesetting, it can help you deploy educational context in various formats, be it course notes, be it, of course, annotated presentations, or as articles using journal templates, right? Something that I failed to mention as educational content is also the production of books, the production of interactive books, etc., that can be personalized to the liking of your organization, or all your, let's say, your graphical standards, right? And as I said, the articles can be used using various journal templates. Of course, for the moment, let's say the choice is a little bit limited, but let's say, given that it's an open source language, given it's an open source tool, everybody can create their own extensions. Okay, so more and more journals are coming about. Now it's time for a little demo. I have created a GitHub repository with all the contents of this talk. It's over here. I updated it this morning. So afterwards, we will send you the link. Yeah, show it on the website. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. So yeah, all the examples and even this presentation, this small presentation deck is over there, so you can clone the repo and try that what I've done on my own. We will be modifying one of the examples over here. This will be, let's say, our basic document, and just let me go through it in a second. It contains course notes with an example of that analysis. Okay, so let me go to my RStudio session that I have open here. Of course, here's my presentation. I will just switch to my, there it is, to my example, so you can navigate to in the repo. You can navigate to the examples. Sorry, I just increase a little bit the font. I think I have to stop sharing and share my RStudio screen. There you go. There it is. So here's my RStudio window. Here's the repo. You can navigate to the examples folder, to the examples directory, and here I have a folder containing a simple report. Okay. Well, to be honest, it's let's say the contents of it might not be as precise as one would like. Just let's say it's supposed to be just an example of this concept called the data science pipeline. What is the data science pipeline? It's a tool. It's let's say an approach that helps encapsulate many of the tasks of a data scientist, right? So a data scientist always intends to create a data product, be it let's say an application, a dashboard, a report, a paper, etc., etc. And framing the steps of the production of this type of products is useful in just to conceptualize the different steps, right? Just to, let's say, familiarize oneself with the approach and so on. So the data science pipeline is basically the steps that comprise a data analysis, or the creation of any data product. It starts with, of course, the formulation of a question, the importation of some data, the tidying, cleaning step, before entering the exploration loop. That is a series of successive iterative steps of transformation of the data, visualization that informs the modeling, that informs new transformations, new visualizations, the modeling, etc., etc. And then once we have, let's say, some insight onto the problem, onto what the data is telling us, we communicate it. Okay. So this is, let's say, an example of how I would teach this data pipeline in a practical example, with some data on stocks of 5 tech companies, where, like, first there's an analysis on a single company, and then these companies are compared over time on how they have let's say, their stock has evolved. Okay, just an example of this type of course. Okay, here we import the data. Sorry. Here we import the, sorry, I have to run chunk above. I have to run this chunk then. And it uses a package called tidyquant to import the stocks data on 5 tech companies: Apple, Microsoft, Google, Tesla, and Amazon. Okay, so I have imported it successfully. Here I have a section on how to clean the data. For a moment, let's not focus on the content, but just know that it's comments on how I filtered it, how I'm selecting one company. Then I go into the loop of understanding. First, a visualization, a simple visualization on the closing price of these stocks over time. I comment on transformations that I do, for instance, like the computation of the log returns. I have a formula here that informs what I'm doing afterwards. And then I visualize it again. And here I have some comments on how the stock, for instance, the stock of Apple has behaved over time. Ever since the time window of this analysis is the time starting since the pandemic. So the whole year of 2020 starting in March, 2021, 2022, 2023, and up until, let's say, the recent days. You see that there's lots of variability in the log return of the stock in 2020, owing to all the uncertainties related to the pandemic. 2022, with the war and everything, there's also lots of variability, lots of risk on the stock and so on. Okay, I add some comments over here, et cetera, et cetera. I create a table of summary statistics that might not be, let's say, super informative, but start to be, let's say, give you an understanding of how the stock has fared, what was the average return, what was the average, let's say, the average risk as measured by the standard deviation. And finally, because I had this interpretation on that my let's say my visualization informed me somewhat on the variability of the stock over the years, I create a little table that does the computation of those measures, the average return and the risk, and let's say gives a number to those to those years, right? In terms of average return and risk. And I can make it so that it's colored a little bit. If the risk was high, measured by the standard deviation, like I have some color that denotes that, so my table is even more telling and so on. And finally, I analyze multiple companies. I make visualizations for all this, all the companies combined. In this lesson, I try to visualize it together, but it looks really bad. So I suggest the learner to create a faceted chart that is to separate the different companies, the returns of these different companies into various mini plots. And here I can see again what has happened. Like there's lots of variability in 2021 and 2020 and in 2022. And there are companies that have more or less excessive variability, such as Tesla, which is pretty much all over the place, and so on. And that's it for this analysis, right? Then I quantify that. I display it in a table, quantify the risk, and I display it in a table. And here I can highlight where things have, let's say, where the risk has been quite bad. For instance, for Tesla, it has been always systematically volatile, with systematically variable, and so on. Okay, so these are the context of this lesson that teaches me how to talk about the data science pipeline, just to learn the approach, right? Importing the data, tidying it up, and doing some models, doing some visualization, etc., to understand them and produce, for instance, these tables, these insights, these comments. Okay. The end product of this is, of course, a small report that I'm rendering using these options, these Quarto options that I'm highlighting over here, right? So this produces a small report and in HTML format that comes about like this, right? Now, the good features of Quarto with respect to our Markdown is that it uses special environments that are on, let's say, on the in the language, in the tool itself. You can invoke for instance, this tab set framing, which allows you to distribute a little bit better the content to make it a little bit more, like browsable. Like for instance, when I'm talking about tidying the data, I can create a tab with, okay, the different steps so that I don't, let's say, I don't have all the content displayed into one single page, but I have like something that is a little bit more browsable, a little bit more consumable, and so on. Then another feature that is and this is easy to create from the visual editor. For instance, if I want to, for example, create a new tab set, I can just invoke this selection tool with the / and then say I want to tab set, and I can give the tab names, tab tab 2, and add some And that's going to create these two environments. And if I see it in the source code, and as I said, in the source code, you see everything like an R Markdown document without the visual editor. This creates a little environment over here defined by 3 colons and a space. That's the syntax for creating the environments. And everything that is going to be in this environment is going to be in one of the tabs, right? So text, I don't know, some an R code chunk with hello, yeah, Quarto max hello. And if I go back to the pre-rendering of the visual in the visual editor, and then I render it into the document, it's going to come out. Takes a little while, but it will come out in the same way as this other tab set was displayed. Okay. So yeah, tab 1, tab 2 with the code chunk and so on. Okay. So it's easy to write down. I mean, it allows you to create environments such as the tab set. Other environments that are interesting are the callout notes. This is another environment that I like to use a lot because it allows me to, highlight a little bit more the content and so on, and it's rendered beautifully, and it's cross-referenceable and so on. Let me see where it is. Yeah, for instance, over here, there's a callout, and it's of type important, and I can again create one of those with the selection tool, to create the selection tool. Okay. Another feature that is interesting is creating labels, and as I said, and to do cross-referencing and so on. It's you can create that within an R code chunk, for instance, with YAML code over here. For instance, I created a figure that I'm going to call fig log returns apple, and then I can cross-reference it as I want, right? So I can insert over here with that. I can identify it with this label. It will have this caption, and I can insert cross-reference very easily with sorry. Insert do a cross-reference over here. Yeah, there you go. Over here, because our let's say the RStudio interface navigates through all the possible all the document, and it can identify the different cross-referenced elements that I have created, and I can add them to the text using the menu, or just using the add and I think that it works. The auto completion works as well. Okay. So now in the final document, things will appear cross-referenced. Okay. Or a cross-reference that can be browsable as well to that point. Okay. Definitions, formula, etc., are also possible to be cross-referenced. Let me see where I create. Yeah, here I create the definition of how I compute the log returns. Here it is. It's browsable, and there's an environment called definition that can be also cross-referenced, and also equations can be cross-referenced, and so on. So it's pretty, let's say, easy to do, and you can invoke everything with the auto-completion or with the insert cross-referenced element. Okay. So those are some of the neat, let's say, features of Quarto for just simple reporting. I can go, of course, one step further and try to personalize a little bit more my document. And here I have created a document called Customized Report. It's one of the examples. And here I have separated things. Like on one side, I have the content of my report in this index QMD file that contains all the content that I have just shown. And the customized report is actually just changing the YAML header. Okay. So if you compare the original YAML, which is relatively simple. It has title, author, subtitle, and the format. Here's a little bit more complex. Like the format is HTML still, but I add some parameters. Like for instance, I want a particular rendering theme. I want the sections to be numbered. I want a button to fold the code. That is right now it's set up to show, because this is intended to teach a little bit the learners how to use code. And with a certain highlight style for the code. I want a table of contents. I want some browsable tables and so on, the location of the table of contents and so on. Lots of parameters. And let's say personalizing the font, etc., etc. But it's just, the header, right? The content is just, I'm including it, I'm sourcing it from another file, from the index_qmd with this shortcut that is included, okay? If I render this document with this, let's say with these parameters, it will come about as something a little bit more professional looking, let's say more, pleasing to the eyes, not as simple as before, and you can distribute it or deploy as let's say in a website, or as part of what you distribute to learners, etc., right? Or to your colleagues as well, right? So we imagine that this is, let's say, an analysis that you're carrying for scientific paper or so on, or intermediate results that you want to share with your audience, right? And you can navigate through all the steps and so on, like summary statistics, etc., etc., etc. Okay. So this is one way of sharing. And again, I had little to change in my, or from my original document. Basically, I can have a single document that I can render in other formats, right? Another way of communicating is the presentation. And for the presentation, I did the same, basically. So I created an even more stripped down version of the content. And I created a QMD, just changing the header, okay? And here I will spend a little second talking about the formats. The format of a Quarto document is the way it's going to be rendered. And there's HTML document, there are Word documents, there are PDFs, etc., etc. And in particular for presentations, it relies on a technology called Reveal.js, which is JavaScript based tool that creates presentations with animations, with nice features, right? A Reveal.js has its own particular, let's say, parameters that can be changed, like the title slides, etc., etc. Images, whether you want a chalkboard tool, which is always very fancy, and I will show it in a second. And also some personalization, such as the logo of your institution. If you have a CSS, like cascading styling sheet, where you have the, let's say, the corporate imagery of your company, colors, and so on, you can outsource it to that. You can rely on that. And again, I'm just including the content from another file to produce this. Okay. And it's going to come about a little bit junky, a little bit, like, because I did a little bit fast, but there's lots of personalization, and I will outsource all the, let's say, all the details on all the possibilities for presentation to an example presentation in the POSIT website. But well, it comes a little bit junky. I'm not intending to do that, to be, let's say, super say neat about this presentation that I create with the basis of the report. But you can see it already comes about relatively nicely. Okay. And Quarto has the advantage of having this Quarto presentations have the advantage of having this menu where you can invoke, as I have specified, a chalkboard where you can write down, whatever, like, okay, I want to explain a little bit one of these concepts. I want to talk about this formula or whatever. And you have a chalkboard that you can invoke. Okay. And you can, of course, again, for instance, share export your presentation in PDF and things like that. Okay. So, and make your slides a little bit scrollable so that, like you can include more content. You don't have to separate everything in a single slide and so on. And the two last types of documents I wanted to show you on the basis that I created on the basis of these documents one is the interactive books. For the interactive books, it's very much like Book Down, but even easier, I would say. What you have to create is a project, a book project, let's say, that contains the different chapters of your book separated into different QMDs. And within each QMD, you have of course, the welcome page, the index, which is really stripped down, the different chapters as QMDs. And then you have a general YAML for this project. And you have project type book. You give the title, you give the QMDs, where are the chapters as a list, and the different formatting options for the book, right? And the nice thing is, if you have this built as a project, this activates a build tab where you can render books in the format that you have specified, right? So each of these QMDs is actually a self-contained, doesn't work necessarily. Didn't work. Why is that? Yeah, it wasn't that. Perhaps I didn't do it as self-contained as I wanted. It's on the import QMD. Just a second. Yeah. Perhaps these changes didn't come about. Well, I have already a pre-rendered version of the sorry. It wasn't as neatly as I have. Dark is the one. Well, I can always rely on a pre-rendered version of the book that is over here. Table of contents, introduction, etc., etc. That is this is the PDF version. Okay. Might have not saved or pushed the contents, or I don't know. For some reason, it's not coming about the interactive book. But anyway, you will. I will fix it, and I will deploy it on the repo. Okay. Perhaps it wasn't as neatly constructed as I wanted it to be. Finally, we have this templates for I wanted to show. It's on the website. There are journal article templates that you can install and that you can download, and these are available on the Quarto website. You can install the different templates, and of course, as I said, for the moment the choice is limited, but they are here. Like you can use a PLOS template, you can use an Elsevier template, a Journal of Statistical Software, and so on. And you can therefore download it and then use them to create a single, let's say, to create a series of templates that creates an environment where you have the bibliography, some figures, etc., etc., and especially provides you the YAML with the different features of a particular journal, right? And of course, it runs in the background. It runs different versions of LaTeX, in this case, XC-LaTeX, to render the PDF. And as you can see, it comes about with as a template for the, let's say, in this case, it's for JASA, but be pretentious to try to send this thing to JASA. But yeah, it comes about like this. And if you don't want, for instance, the content to appear, you can use let's say, the code to appear. You can use some execute options to have the code not be displayed without in at every step of the way. Okay. So this is just an example of the many ways Quarto can help you in the academic setting. Again, simple reporting. Then you can jump into more complicated reporting, more, let's say, more a more thorough, more personalized, customized documents that can be distributed as course notes, etc., etc. And finally, books, final presentations, and scientific articles. Yes. So yeah, I think we have some minutes to just chat. If you have questions, if you can share also your experiences with our Markdown, with Quarto, would be very happy to hear those. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for my non-submission to JASA. Yeah. You can also do working papers. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, yeah, it would have been less pretentious. Yeah.
For some exception, rooms only 3 kilos. But we have 5 minutes for some questions. This time I really work from food, so it is hard when Italian.
Yeah.
But maybe we will put some other things. When I say safety, we will probably. I don't know where we were. I don't know where.
Yeah.
Definitely. So sorry, do you have any question?
Singular. Yeah.
But at the beginning of the presentation, you showed this final observable, right?
Yeah.
It's JavaScript inside of it.
I think so. Yeah. I think it's based. Yeah. I think it's based on JavaScript. Sincerely,
Wait, observable. It's just a support JavaScript.
yeah, I think it's a library, right? I'm not entirely sure actually. But I know that it's made for interactive visualizations, and there's lots of JavaScript inside. But yeah, like it has its shortcuts, it has its syntax. So yeah.
And another question is, so I understood you can do a presentation what
Mhm.
and how does it compare? But since it's quite recent, how does it compare with examining that presentation?
Okay.
It's syntax or
Yeah, I mean, lots of the heavy lifting that I mean, in sharing I was pretty flexible, right? You could create your CSS, like you're super happy doing your all the different things you want to customize and so on. Quarto is a little bit more restrained because it restrained in a certain aspect on the because there's lots of things that are already done in Reveal.js. Reveal.js. Okay, so it relies on this presentation framework that is called Reveal.js, and Reveal.js has a particular, let's say, not only syntax but also like let's say layout. Okay, so lots of the let's say the heavy lifting in terms of customization for animations and so on is already done there. So yeah, so and also the prettier animations to illustrate code and so on. And if you go to the example presentation, it retakes lots of that. You can customize certain aspects such as the identity, the colors, but many things about the layout are built in. Yeah, it's not necessarily customizable.
Yeah.
So if you go to the advanced reveal, it tells you what you can change, but it's not everything. Yeah, just that. In Xaringan, yeah, exactly, in Xaringan. Now, Xaringan is, let's say I love Xaringan. You love Xaringan as well. but it's a little bit more, like do it yourself. It's a little bit, whereas this is a little bit more, it's also supported by the company. So whereas the other one is just UE who does it, and exactly, I want to do this, and then it's a much more, let's say, small effort, community effort, whereas this one is a little bit more, it's intended at least to be a little bit more corporate to a certain extent, in the sense that it's supported by the company and relies on this technology that is quite mature. So those are the only differences, but yeah. Mhm. Yes. Oh, I have the contractor, so I can't move my head to the right. Yes, you. Yeah, to a certain extent you can. As I've shown in the presentation, at one point in the customized, in the customized report, I I I chose a different font for the body. But again, there are Quarto themes that, there are some things that you can change. There are some things that you can't. If you rely on an already prepared theme, you can't change that. But if you create your theme with a CSS, for instance, you can change as many things as you can, as much as you want, for HTML, right? Your reveal JS is another story, as I mentioned, but yeah, an HTML can be customized to support many different fonts. Yeah. Yes.
Also, Quarto supports some citation styles like APA or MLA.
As far as I know, yes. Yeah. If I go to the guide, citation styles, I think there's some information over there. Yeah. So yeah, it supports different citation styles. Yeah.
I guess the second part of the question would be, how far am I using that rather than Microsoft Word? What's the learning curve? Shall I switch to that if I want to share my data? I mean, files with some people. What's the learning curve using that rather than Word?
Mhm.
Because I'm PhD now.
Are you using Word? What's your workflow, just to know?
Just to write everything that I write and do it in Word. I'm
Yeah.
willing to change to this stuff, but what's the learning curve? Up to what extent is it feasible? Because I don't know, so I have
Of course.
people, and if I'm the only one using that, then I force the others to use that. It's simply not.
Of course.
Is it how realistic is it?
I mean, yeah, I'm always a little bit biased because, like, we're all familiar with programming from, from it's our background, who did this, right? I would say, like, seeing it from afar, with the visual code editor, you have menu items, right? Very much like you do in Word. You can write down text, and you have shortcuts such as Command B to make it bold, things like that. Afterwards, if you want to go into the source code, is a little bit more, let's say, involved, but the visual editor allows you to make these changes a little bit more smoothly from Word, where you have items like that. Also, auto completion helps you. Also, I mean, I would say that this is, if you're familiar with tools like Notion, does it ring a bell? Notion is a note taking tool that is over here, that has this type of auto completion and so on. I would say that with the visual editor, the learning curve is not that as steep as it would be going directly to the code that was in R Markdown, I would say.
All my code is in R.
Yeah, okay.
That's a step, but if I have to share with other people, let's say it's easy to send my Word document so it can be corrected. And the other thing is the Zotero integration. I try to be as open source as I can, so I can use Zotero instead of EndNote. Is Zotero integrated in?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Yeah.
citations and.
Exactly. Yeah, there are hooks to do. Yeah, to do that. Yeah, there are hooks to do that. I've seen it. I haven't done it here, but you can, for instance, if you want to add a cross reference, you can add a DOI, and it will add it to the references. And if you have a Zotero library, it can access that. So wait a second. If I hope that the insert cross reference citation here works, and if you install, I think an add-on, you can have your Zotero over here in the insert citations menu. Yes,
So it's realistic to try to switch.
it's realistic. It's realistic. Now, you were talking about a learning curve. If you're not that familiar with Markdown, it might be a bit steep, but if you use the visual editor, it might be less steep. Yeah. Okay.
But in many situations, when those accepts only takes
Mhm.
like to apply for a job.
But it can be exported.
It can render Word. Yeah.
Yeah.
This can render Word. Yeah. That's yeah. The final output is going to be Word. It can be Word, but the intermediate, whatever you want to collaborate on, has to. I mean, would be better to have it in QMD. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Make that that you have you can share your code and have like a version control over it.
Yeah.
On the one document that you send, someone sends you a new version and a new version, and you have a top version that you have just lost in the well. This one. Out.
Like a wiki kind of wiki principle of versioning. Yeah, wiki or Wikipedia.
Would be more like on GitHub, like you can see the different versions, like over here.
Share with people familiar with Python or the program.
That as well. Yeah.
Your collaborators, some work in Python, some work in Julia. Then they can all combine. But if it's only words and nobody knows that, I'm not sure if you can convince your collaborators to work on Quarto.
Mhm.
I guess it was more like for people from the art community to share documents with other communities such as.
Yeah.